There is some massive economic information that just came out, and if it is true, it is showing that Mark Carney lied to Canadians about his plans for the economy and for our finances this entire time. And for some reason, the media is completely silent about it, but the Conservatives are going after them for this spending, which is definitely tied into this information that just came out. But are they going after the right things? Because we are seeing major problems continue to develop that are hurting Canadians' pocketbooks, their finances directly, while rewarding only a few people and stopping businesses from investing in Canada. This is a problem that needs to change right away. And of course, the ministers are showing us that they are hard at work, earning their hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're definitely qualified for the job when it comes to Canadians' money. We are going to get into all of that today. We have a bunch of other side stories that I want to cover. It's all related, and I am sick again today, but we're fighting through it. So let's get into it. Here are the first announcements that I want to get into, because if this is all true, and we have a bunch of videos that are going to piece this together, we could be seeing some drastic changes to Canada's economy.
CTV News has learned that Canada and the United States have intensified talks on an economic and security deal, and a preliminary framework is in place.
It's a very dynamic situation. You know, we've been engaging with our friends in the United States.
Our friends in the United States.
You know, we talk to different people in the administration.
Sources tell CTV News the deal will likely require President Donald Trump to sign off. The timeline unpredictable because of protests throughout the United States right now. Last week, Canadian Industry Minister Melanie Joly confirmed there had been high-level talks underway. Details have yet to be made public. President Trump is expected to land here in Alberta for the G7 summit on Sunday.
What a shift in tone when you compare it to what they said during the election. He had said that their economic and security relationship had changed and we weren't going back to what we were before. I guess he was technically telling the truth, because if the information that's coming out is true, we are going to be more involved with the United States than ever, and this could be against Canadian wishes. But the economic stuff that's coming out, just seeing this. So first of all, we're taking on the U.S., elbows up. We just met with our friends from the U.S., and we're going to make sure that we are meeting with them. The French guy, and we're going to get into Quebec being a problem shortly. But look at what information's coming out now about these trade deals. Yes, it's high-level talks, but we know these deals have to get done. And when I get into the details, it's insane.
Talks between Canada and the U.S., they have now gotten to a point that a document outlining a potential agreement has been shared back and forth by officials in Ottawa and Washington. That is according to three sources with direct knowledge of the information who've spoken with either me or with my colleagues at Radio Canada. Now, sources are making it extremely clear a deal is not imminent and there's more work that needs to be done, and that they're not expecting an agreement before the G7 summit next week. But we have learned a little bit about what's in this document. According to one source, it includes a commitment from Canada to participate in the Golden Dome missile defense strategy. That is a controversial proposal from U.S. President Donald Trump that could end up costing hundreds of billions of dollars and take years to develop.
So again, the Golden Dome, we've talked about it in a few videos now. Right now, it has 67% of Canadians saying they don't want to get involved with the Golden Dome. I do. I think us building a security relationship with America is a good thing, and I think it would only help both nations. But the fact is, Carney's going against Canadians' wishes, and he's the one who said these relationships have changed. We're not going back to where we were before. Yeah, again, he's certainly not, I guess.
It also highlights Canada's recent commitment to it meeting its NATO defense spending targets, Canada's plan to make further security investments in the Arctic, and the previously announced measures to highlight border security. Now,
Speaking of border security and how they're going to be changing the economic accounting when it comes to, let's call it creative accounting that they're going to do. And like I said, with them giving the Canada Post the sweeping powers, them being able to file it under, national security, I think we're going to see Canada Post reach a deal sooner rather than later. And that money is going to come from the defense spending. But here's what I wanted to get into, because yes, these documents are being shared around. And again, if this information is true, we could be seeing a change that we've never seen before in the relationship between Canada and the US. Look at this setup here. Tariffs were meant to force manufacturers to set up shop in the United States, but they were also stunting investment in the mining of these critical elements in Canada. Interesting. So Canadian negotiators are using the national security imperative to get them lifted. Okay, very, very interesting. Flavio Volpe, head of Canada's Association of Auto Parts Manufacturers, notes that the White House wants to repatriate manufacturing, but they don't get to repatriate resources. Oh, really? Because people briefed on the negotiations say the United States would be guaranteed first right of refusal on Canadian resources. That's huge. If they are guaranteed first right of refusal on Canadian resources, yeah, I think that would be tying our economy together, tying the security relationship together a lot more than it was previously. Like, and again, on the channel this whole time, I've been a pro-America guy because I think Canada and America should be building a strong relationship. But the fact is, this is Mark Carney and his team going against every single thing that they said during the election. So the approval rating from this and the Canadians who voted for them, that you can already see them spiraling once these announcements are done. And it's hilarious. And then the question was, should we take him literally? That may explain why Trump wants a deal with Canada. But why would Mr. Carney work with, first of all, calling him Mr. Carney is very funny because he is prime minister. So Mr. Carney worked with the man who's repeatedly said he wants to swallow his country, probably because Mr. Trump's tariffs are not just stifling investment, but beginning to hurt Canadian workers. And that's very important for what we're going to get into, because unemployment hit 7% in May, and pandemic aside, that is the highest rate since 2016. And it's continuing to grow, 8% in Ontario, 7.9, whatever. The point is, Canada's economy is showing major cracks, and I've said that since the beginning. We cannot go band for band with the U.S. You know, you got to stay in your lane. Kevin Hart has a whole bit about it. You know, you may think you have money, but then you meet a professional athlete and you realize, I guess I got to stay in my lane. And that's what Canada's realizing now, because as Canada's struggling, as the economy continues to show cracks, as unemployment increases and, finances are stretched, which, there's other problems for that we're going to get into. We're seeing this news come out of the U.S. Look how well things are going for them.
Let's bring in Committee to Unleash Prosperity co-founder and former Trump economic advisor, Steve Moore. Steve Moore, 1.4% annualized inflation, second term so far for President Trump. Weekly paychecks up 1.3%. Energy prices, boom, falling. And bupkis from the people who also dismissed the runaway inflation and the cost of living crisis the last 4 years.
Yeah, and she's obviously pretty hype on the changes, and I would be too, because yes, it's early to know if this is going to be a trend from the US, but the fact is, and again, there's obviously data-specific changes, some of it is because they front-loaded from the tariffs.
Yeah, what can I say, Dagan? You're right, it's a beautiful picture, and boy, what a difference a few months make. A couple of months ago, we were all on the ledge as the stock market was crashing, and it looks like Trump has really pulled this thing out amazingly. So you're right, all of those statistics are correct. We have a record number of job openings today. We've got those inflation numbers. And by the way, I'm willing to admit even I was wrong. I thought the inflation would be higher than it has come in at.
Almost every single person predicted higher inflation, FYI.
And I guess that teaches me to never second guess Donald Trump. But these are really good numbers. And we haven't even passed the tax cut yet. I mean, you think it's good now? Wait until we get that tax cut passed, signed, sealed, and delivered. Trump is just pushing all the right buttons, and all the people who were naysayers who said inflation was going to go through the roof and the programs would never win, and Trump had some sinister plan to dismantle the American economy. No.
Yeah, which, again, every single piece of information, even people I've argued with, like in comments and other things, every single person said America was going to be dealing with skyrocketing inflation from this. And these are the types of changes that buy America time when it comes to all of these trade deals, especially when they're making deals with Mexico to lower the tariffs with them and China. And this is why we see Canada might be in this position to be handing over the entire bag, which at the story after this is kind of going to bring it all together because there's some suspicious stuff going on.
No, that was Joe Biden who had the sinister plan to dismantle the economy.
Well, Steve, it takes a strong man to admit when you're wrong, so we appreciate we've all been wrong, especially when you do this for a living. I guess, what's the why behind that? Why have we seen inflation cool?
Great question, and it's because look what's happening production. Look what's happening to investment in America. I just spoke at a big industrial conference yesterday about 200, major construction and manufacturing companies. I said, "How many of you is business good or great?" And about 80% of them raised their hands.
And that's the difference. They are seeing so much more reinvestment into the U.S., which is going to be great for their GDP per capita, which is what we are struggling with in Canada. And that's going to be huge, again, for the standard of living for Americans. And they're the ones who put the pressure on when it comes to finances. If they start to get more jobs and feel like their standard of living's better, it's going to mean, again, America buys more time. But then we see this announcement. Look at this here. Andrew Scheer says the CPC will vote against the Liberal spending bills of $500 billion, unproductive because it's all just government spending, and new borrowing, making Justin Trudeau's deficits look small. And then this person says, simply put, Mark Carney is an economic hitman sent to Canada to finish what Trudeau started. And this is where the theories from what we just saw on Mark Carney potentially handing off the first right of refusal to all of our resources to the US, all of this spending, and these theories that Mark Carney was here to do the managed decline to hand us over to the US, it's starting to come together. I don't know. Let's check this out.
Liberals are going to be asking Parliament to approve $500 billion in inflationary spending, and Conservatives just can't support that. This is coming from a government that promised in its throne speech to cap spending growth by 2%. Mark Carney then established a new world record for breaking promises. Just a few minutes later in the House of Commons, he tabled the main estimates, the outlines of the government spending program, which blew past that 2% cap and is reaching an incredible 8%. Mark Carney is actually going to borrow and spend more money than Justin Trudeau. So Conservatives will be voting against the government's main estimates next week because we just simply cannot endorse such an irresponsible spending plan that makes Justin Trudeau look like a sound financial manager.
Again, it's going to smash Trudeau's record, but also when you see $500 billion, we're going to go past that. Not only that, what's going to happen is all of that, because it's unproductive spending plus the immigration, is naturally, it's just inflationary. So this is going to devalue your dollar. It's going to hurt your pocketbook. And that's why I keep saying, invest in Wealth Simple, because you're investing in yourself. The link is down below. You get paid $25. I get paid $25. Now more than ever, $500 billion, all these changes, you got to protect yourself.
That's what Mark Carney has done to the Liberal Party. Just a few months ago, Chrystia Freeland resigned in protest over Justin Trudeau's deficit. She basically threw a grenade into the Liberal caucus and quit because she could not go along with such irresponsible borrowing and spending.
I love that. Yeah. Christian, as a finance minister, I gotta retire. I gotta, step back because I just can't deal with this spending. Record-setting spending, and that's going to be absolutely destructive to Canadians' finances. I'll stick around for that if you keep paying me almost $400,000 a year. While we have things like this in place, it's going to stop business investment and it's going to hurt Canadians. Charlebois, our dairy addiction is making Canada a trade pariah. Supply management is once again being shielded from scrutiny under the pretense of national interest. Well, we've shown how much they care about national interest at the government level. When it comes to supply management and trade policy, Canada seems trapped in a cycle of repeating the same costly mistakes, and it is costly. Before Mark Carney's arrival as Prime Minister, the previous Parliament adopted Bill C-282, introduced by the Bloc Québécois. It's going to be a theme in this video that we'll see that they continue to ruin things in Quebec. The bill granted blanket immunity to Canada's supply management sectors, most notably dairy. And I'm not calling out because I don't want to, guys, if anything ever happens to me, I am feeling great. There's nothing that I have going on. So if I mysteriously go missing, investigate the dairy cartel. That's what I'm saying right here, okay? Against any future concessions in trade negotiations, regardless of the partner or economic context, it effectively locked in protectionism for a system that already struggling to justify itself in the modern global economy. Another example of Carney lying here. During the federal election campaign on April 3rd, Carney stated in a Radio Canada interview that no legislation was necessary to protect Canada's dairy industry. It appears that since he's changed his mind, or someone changed it for him, or he's just a liar. I want to point that part out because he obviously can't be trusted, everything he says. But here's where it impacts Canadians directly. Canada has the highest industrial milk prices in the G7. This is not true for poultry or eggs, but it is for milk, a critical staple in household diets. These elevated prices do not necessarily lead to innovation or reinvestment. So it's bad for productivity. In fact, many producers are content to maintain the status quo, knowing the system protects them from competition. The result, Canadian consumers foot the bill for a sector with little incentive to become more efficient or cost effective. Guys, I worked on a dairy farm in grade 9. I would milk over 200 cows. That would be thousands of liters of milk, and I would get paid $40 a milking. That guy had quite a nice house. But the dairy cartel in Canada is a problem. And keep in mind, you as the consumer gets hurt by this. And this was one of the big problems. Every time they used, Canada has 250% tariffs. That's because of dairy. And the people say, well, they've never paid the tariffs. Yes, but all of these things in place have disincentivized Americans and other foreign companies from wanting to invest in Canada and try and access our markets. And now we have the most expensive milk in the G7. But speaking of Quebec's language laws and crushing businesses investing in Canada, look at this fun little story.
It's a mythical battle between goblins and giants, explained in an unusual language, Fringlish.
It's seamless integration of English and French, and it's awesome. It's part of what our community is.
But at this hobby shop in Saint-Marthe-sur-le-Lac, an even bigger fight is brewing.
I realized that about 90% of my shop is illegal.
That's because products like this are made abroad, and the packaging is primarily in English.
Right now, we do have a bit of French on the top of the box here. We have Intercesseur d'Assaut.
At BD Cosmos in Laval, it's a similar story.
This is their branded paint line, and it's only in English.
So these stories, yes, this is just a hobby shop, and it's just showing like toys and games and stuff like that. So people will think that's a niche industry. Oh, well, why would I care that much about these tabletop games? Because I just showed you with the dairy and these other things, again, somehow both coming out of Quebec as being problems. This is going to be disincentivizing businesses from wanting to come to Canada. When we have announcements like this, when we are trying to chase international investment, are they going to want to? Let's get into it.
As the Canadian government considers major infrastructure projects, the Premier says Alberta's government is trying to find private sector partners for a potential pipeline. She delivered this message during the Global Energy Show in Calgary yesterday. Smith wants a pipeline to Prince Rupert, BC, carrying 1 million barrels of oil a day to global markets. BC's Premier says he will consider a proposal when it comes, but points out right now there's no project and no funding. Smith said
BC Premier just loves getting in the way.
As Ottawa seems more open to the idea now, and she wants action as the separatism sentiment swells in Alberta.
I have never seen separatist sentiment be as high as it is right now. We've done our own polling, and we've seen numbers as high as 37%. You look historically, I don't know if it's ever been that high. But again, I've also seen it dissipate when Ottawa addresses the legitimate concerns Alberta has.
Yeah, and obviously, it's not like Alberta wants to leave. It's just if you continue to punish Alberta economically, hold them back, they're going to want to leave. But luckily, we do see some level of business investment in Canada. And I do think this could be a nation-building project that we're going to talk about here and could set the tone for Canada's future. Let's get into it.
A new sports team could be hitting the field in Winnipeg next year.
The rise of women's sports teams has been, as I said, astronomical.
She's been phenomenal. Which is why the Women's Football Alliance has plans to expand its tackle football league into Canada. It launched in 2009, and it's
blazing speeds from that lady right there.
Current roster includes 55 teams in the U.S., with pro teams in 12 cities. The game is watched by more than 1.3 million people on ESPN. Now it hopes to score a touchdown by adding another 4 to 6 teams north of the border, including a franchise right here in Winnipeg.
You know, guys, we cover a lot of economics, a lot of finance on this channel. And the one thing I've been saying for years, Canada does not have enough chicks hitting each other playing football. And we knew that this is something that Canada's been clamoring for, and we need it. But we do have this small little hit piece put out by the media on Pierre, and it's important to get into. We've covered some of this stuff, but we have a direct response from an MP that the media was convenient enough to ignore.
It's a shift of tone on a hot-button issue.
We want severe limits on population growth to reverse the damage the Liberals did to our system.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre going further on immigration than he did during the election.
The population has been growing out of control. Our borders have been left wide open. This has caused the free flow of drugs, human trafficking, illegal migration. That's what Liberals have done.
The Conservative leader didn't clarify what he meant by severe limits on population growth.
Thank you.
He could have been a bit, well, you know, I said in the other videos, he could have been a bit more strict on this before.
And walked away when reporters attempted to follow up.
There should be severe limits on population growth. What do you think that should be?
Most Conservative MPs equally as uninterested in responding.
I saw you tweeting about that. Anything you want to say about that?
Canada's population saw a substantial surge between 2021 and 2024, jumping by nearly 9% according to Statistics Canada.
That's insane, guys. Like 9% population growth in that short amount of time.
Hitting 41 million people, leading the Justin Trudeau Liberals to slash the number of permanent residents admitted annually from
Real meeting of the minds over there.
500,000 in 2025 to 365,000 by 2027.
So I also, because the Overton window keeps shifting, I wanted to get into this number here. The number for the PRs is 500,000 in 2025, and they're saying they want to slash it down to 365 by 2027. This is where the Overton window is important, because in 2015, the estimated goal for the PRs back then was around 250,000. So 365,000 is literally almost 50% more than our 2015 numbers.
And put caps on temporary immigration streams, effectively setting Canada's population growth at zero for the next 3 years.
Pierre Poilievre, as usual, is going toxic, and that's what he's going to do, and I think that's why people find him to be a very negative presence in politics and have rewarded him accordingly by taking away his seat.
They basically said, oh yeah, we are taking on America. We're elbows up. We are seeing, this is, you know, dangerous, unprecedented times. We're going to battle. This is so scary. You need to be scared. And somehow Pierre's the toxic one when his whole campaign was about hope and all of those other things. But it's funny because, yes, this, you know, hit piece was put out, but then we have the actual MP, Michelle Rempel-Garner, put out this piece here. I'm the shadow minister and I scrummed on this today. You didn't include that in this smear piece. You also didn't even bother to reach out to me. Do better. So, because he said in the video, oh, well, the Conservative MPs didn't want to weigh in on it. Well, why wouldn't you go to the shadow minister for that? So I'll do your job for you here. This week, the government repeatedly failed to say how many people who are in Canada with expired visas, deportation orders, etc. How are they setting new levels if they can't tell MPs how many people who are supposed to leave and actually will leave? In the same vein, how are we supposed to scrutinize the levels when they won't provide information on whether they have attempted to sync the levels with housing stock, healthcare providers, and job forecasts? First of all, Michelle, just slash them. She is right, though. If there's no numbers to say we need that held accountable, then yeah, it's hard for them to weigh in. Because, well, Pierre, what do you mean by we need to bring down the numbers? I wish the Conservatives would just be way more vocal about it. Not, well, we're just going to match it to housing and we're going to do... It's still not enough. Because if it's not, we're going to have news stories like this continuing to come out of the CBC where they don't cover immigration and blame everything else on the jobs market. Let's see. Let's weigh in on some of their excuses.
Gen Z is facing the worst unemployment rate in decades.
More often than not, it's literally just rejection, rejection, rejection. And it's always like the automated messages. I've only gotten like one where it's like, oh, you can do like a video interview, but that's like the first stage out of like 7 others. So no luck.
So is it just a feeling that there are no jobs out there, or is Gen Z actually facing an employment problem? According to StatsCan, Canadian graduates between the ages of 15 and 24 are facing the highest unemployment rate this country has seen since the mid-90s. In January 2023, the seasonal adjusted unemployment rate in this group was 10%. Just over 2 years later, it sits at 14.2%.
And that's not even the updated number. The actual updated number for that, if CBC wanted to do their job, was close to 20%. So I don't know where they got the 14.2. Must be from a couple months ago.
In Quebec, unemployment is below the national average, but it's still creeping up.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. There's also an older generation of baby boomers who haven't left their jobs. But it's really the uncertainty in the market.
And when you add inflation, the trade war with the US, and AI, it's created this environment of volatility and uncertainty.
Okay, so youth unemployment is due to boomers. Sorry, boomers, it's all your fault, according to the CBC. Youth unemployment is also due to Donald J. Trump. We got to blame him. And then, of course, AI. In this video, they do not mention immigration. But don't worry, our ministers are on the case, because when it comes to our public safety, Canada's expectations are high. The public safety minister recuses himself from files on two, let's just say that word is for political enthusiast groups. And the cabinet minister leading Prime Minister Mark Carney's border security push said Tuesday he is recusing himself from files related to Sri Lankan political enthusiast groups and its Canadian front organizations. Wow. So he's recusing himself from doing his job. He makes about $350,000 a year, which is close to 5.5 times as much as the average Canadian makes across all of Canada. In a statement sent to Global News on Tuesday, the Office of Public Safety Minister Gary, not his real name, and Shandagundari, and that's why he goes with Gary, said he had stepped back from any matter related to the groups that was the problem. The minister did not explain why he had done so, except to state that it was out of an abundance of caution. Maybe our ministers making $350,000 responsible for Canadian safety should be Canadian-born citizens who don't have foreign conflicts of interest. So glad he's in charge, but maybe that's just me. But I do want to show a piece of good news here. We got some good news going on. Let's check it out.
Well, it is now official. You'll be able to crack a cold one in some city parks this summer. Councillors approving the pilot project today. CTV's Stefan Keys joins us now with the details on this, Steph.
Patricia, while many people currently enjoy a glass of wine or a beer at the park for the first time ever, that will now be legal. The pilot project begins Canada Day and will run until Halloween, October 31st. But there will be some rules. You are not allowed to drink alcohol before 11 in the morning or after 9 at night, and you can't consume alcohol within a 5-meter radius of playgrounds, splash pads, beaches, sports fields, or ball diamonds. And legal drinking will only be allowed in some parks. Councillors will select which ones and let us know at a later date. The city says it expects about 12 parks to be a part of the pilot project.
Crime is skyrocketing. Affordability problems are getting worse. You can't find a place to live, but boy, can you crush a few beers on a Friday afternoon with the boys and the pub, aka the park. It's hilarious that with everything we've got going on, they're like, hey, should we put a task force together to see if we can crush some beers at the park? Everything we've shown in today's video is just hilarious examples of how Canada's priorities are not straight and how we are now potentially handing off the reins entirely to the US, which again, I don't have that big of a problem with because I think our partnership should continue to grow. Let's build Fortress America. But anyways, if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps get these videos in front of more people. And sign up for Wealth Simple because of everything we're talking about. Protect your finances. You get $25. I get $25. You're supporting the channel while protecting yourself and taking on the big banks. So have a great rest of your day.